This is Arvin Bautista of Greasy Pig Studios, and you are listening to the Comic Relief Podcast.
Hey listener, welcome to the Comic Relief Podcast.
Hope you survived the experience.
The Comic Relief Podcast is an unscripted discussion about the pop culture surrounding comic books, with your hosts,
Uncanny Thomas Logue
and Mighty Michael Miranda.
All right, welcome to a very special edition of the Comic Relief Podcast. We got a couple interviews lined up, but before we get into our interviews, let's talk about Daredevil, man. We haven't really talked about Daredevil at all since it came out. I guess it kind of got a little overshadowed by the Batman versus Superman event.
That is true. That ended up being a 3-hour podcast, so we want to do something separate where we can just talk about Daredevil and attach a couple interviews. You did the review on comicreliefpodcast.com about Daredevil. Let's hear your point of view first.
I needed pages and pages to really express how much I liked this. I'm actually considering going back and doing like a review on just Matt Murdock or Charlie Cox, just on Karen Page. You know what I mean? Like just write reviews for the individual characters themselves. I think they're worthy of getting their own like piece written up.
This is all about you wanting to write about Elektra. It's what's really going down.
Eventually, that's really, it's going to be just a huge love letter.
I want to talk about Netflix's greatest show, Elektra, guest starring Daredevil.
I'm okay with the $9.99 update. She's worth it, man. She's just totally worth it. I love her.
So many people are like, I don't get the $9.99 update. If you haven't heard, Netflix is raising your rates, even if you're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
So we're even breaking out news while we talk about Daredevil.
Right? On the spot news. Okay, so season 1 of Daredevil blew our minds, right? Just let's be fair about it. It was great. It was a 10. Then Jessica Jones came along, and I have never been. I know very little of Jessica Jones. You know, if I'm reading about Jessica Jones, it's because I'm reading a teen book, and she's in the supporting cast. That's really it. I never read Alias by your favorite author, Brian Michael Bendis.
So the thing is, I had never heard of Jessica Jones ever.
At all, really?
At all. Not until the Netflix show. And then when they announced Jessica Jones, it's funny because I initially thought, oh, this is kind of cool. They're going to do kind of like a detective thing. I was totally thinking it was Jessica Drew, like Spider-Woman. So I was confused for the longest time, and they show her with her superpowers and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's cool. She's got super strength. And it dawned on me much later, like just a little bit before the show started, that I was like, wait a minute, Jessica Jones, that's not Jessica Drew. I've got the wrong person. I literally had to Google who Jessica Jones was.
And you threw me for a loop too. But Jessica Jones came out, again, amazing. The character of Kilgrave and Jessica and her supporting cast, Luke Cage. Awesome show, again, 10. I would put Jessica Jones at probably a 9, just because the series was a little slower, and I felt like I was, I had to do a lot of research to find who these. Not that was a bad thing, that I had to go back and see who all these characters were. It's still pretty cool. But let's say I never even read comics. That was just a good TV show, a lot of suspense, great writing, and just solid show.
Honestly, if I had to decide at the time which was better, Daredevil season 1 or Jessica Jones season 1, I am completely familiar with Daredevil, but Jessica Jones, I had no idea what to expect, once I found out who she actually was and that it was not Spider-Woman. So Daredevil, the guy who plays Kingpin, I forgot his name, did an awesome job.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes, there you go.
Oh my God.
He did such a great job. But I think, like Jessica Jones was slower, it seemed to focus a lot on Jessica Jones and a lot of her struggles. There was not a lot of action in terms of Jessica Jones. But the dude who played the villain, who played Purple Man on Jessica Jones.
Tennant?
Yes.
David Tennant played Kilgrave.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, this dude is... You bought how insane this dude was.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I would have had a hard time deciding which one was better at the time. But now that season 2 of Daredevil has come out, I actually, in hindsight, I think Daredevil is better. Like I saw the characters again, I was like, that's why I like Daredevil so much. Like it reminded me. So, when Jessica Jones season 2 comes out, I might be like, Jessica Jones is a little bit better. It's really hard because they're both so well done. Yes. You know what I mean?
Kilgrave destroyed in this. He stole the show, honestly.
He really did.
Kilgrave stole it for me. I had zero expectations for Jessica Jones. Like I said, I knew nothing about it. And when Kilgrave was introduced, he stole the show. And I think that's what Netflix does so well, is their villains. So far, Kilgrave and Wilson Fisk have been my favorite MCU villains to date. And I mean, that's you throw Loki there in that mix, and that's your top three for me right there.
Oh yeah.
They're just awesome. They really, both David Tennant and Vincent D'Onofrio really feel like flawed, dangerous villains with their insecurities, and they feel like really insane dudes.
And that's the thing, right? Like both of them, it's very clear they both suffer from a major, major insecurity that is literally their driving point.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They both have that big flaw that is really the hole in their personality that really makes them believable and crazy.
I just realized this. They both kind of, their craziness, or I don't want to say their craziness, that's not fair. Their turning point, right? That significant moment was both in their childhood. Remember the scene where Kilgrave is being experimented on by his parents, and then of course Wilson Fisk's flashback back to the incident with his dad.
Oh, and that was such a beautiful scene. I mean, beautiful as in a brutal way.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, right? I think you might be a little sick too, dude. So you take all that into consideration, and then you kick it up to 11 with season 2 for me, right? The Netflix characters are already good. I mean, you talk about Patsy Walker and Jessica Jones, all the supporting cast, Foggy and Karen Page, and all these characters are great. They're awesome. They even got better in season 2 of Daredevil. Foggy and Karen. I mean, Karen, yes, she does have to be saved. She is, but she doesn't seem like a totally helpless damsel in distress. She is a strong character. She's a smart character. She's determined. She's what Lois Lane should have been in Batman.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking.
That is basically it. She is doing her own research. She's very independent. She doesn't really need Matt to protect her, even though, both her and Foggy kind of come in to help her out, and also Frank Castle to some extent, but she's an awesome character, and she's really hot.
And she's extremely defiant. They're like, give it up. The case is over. And she's like, no, there's something wrong, and she keeps digging. Yep. So I kind of like it. So even though, she does get saved by Matt Murdock from time to time, or Daredevil, I should say, she's usually in that predicament because of what she's doing. Like, she won't let go, you know what I mean? And she keeps digging, and she gets herself in trouble. So it's not like she's like, oh, I'm walking across the street. Oh no, I've been abducted. It's legitimate.
The problems that she gets into where she does have to be rescued isn't necessarily because she's a damsel in distress or she's a woman or a female. I think you put any character in that situation, like, Foggy or somebody, and they're going to be in the same situation that she is. It's not just because, oh, I'm a woman, I don't know what to do, I'm getting kidnapped. No, it's not based on that alone. She's a strong, smart character.
What I really liked is in this season, especially, even Foggy has a bunch of strong moments. Like when he goes up to the Dogs of Hell.
Oh yeah,
dude. I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, I relate to Foggy. I'm that nerdy kind of guy, and he's in there like, dude, I need to ask these questions. And the dude's like, I'm about to stab you. And he's like, I get you're about to kill me, but I need to ask this question.
And he didn't go in kicking the door down, kicking ass. You could really feel the nervousness pouring out of his pores, man. He was scared. He was definitely afraid.
He legitimately looked worried.
But he had to go in there. I mean, they could have easily wrote him off as like the goofy sidekick, the goofy best friend type character. But that is a defining scene when he goes into the Dogs of Hell's bar. Also, when Matt kind of drops the ball in the courtroom.
That's the other moment I was going to talk about. Yep.
And Foggy has to step up, and he gives his
opening argument.
Yes, and he destroys it. And that's usually a scene where, like in season 1 and even in season 2, Matt Murdock owned those scenes, and he's super convincing. And shoot, he had me convinced that I forget the ginger guy who killed the dude with the bowling ball. Oh. I mean, he made an argument in season 1 where I was like, yeah, that's right. He may have killed him, but we don't have enough proof. Let him go. You know what I mean? But in in season 2, Foggy Bear took over that role and just killed it. He came in on his own.
Yeah, did you just call him Foggy Bear?
Remember, that's what his.
I was making sure I heard you right.
You know, it's a good show when you care about the little hints of their past. We got Karen's reaction when she take a look at the newspaper. You saw that she was involved in some sort of a car accident, and
Yes.
you care. You want to know what happened. They didn't give you enough. You know what I mean?
Not
It
yet.
sucks. And then his interactions with the other female attorney that works at the big firm, and they had some sort of a fling, and she teases him, and she's kind of hot, and it's like, dude, I want to know who this chick is. She was annoying at first, and then she's kind of grown on me. Like, she does care about Foggy. Yeah.
She comes across in the beginning like a little obsessive crazy.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of cool that they've actually written her to be a little more serious now.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
not so
I love
kooky.
it. But she still calls him Foggy Bear, which is funny to me. And he kind of cringes a little bit.
But he likes it.
Oh, he likes it for sure. And then you have Frank Castle, dude.
He was all right.
I'm sorry, man. Thomas Jane was a good Punisher. Dolph Lundgren was not my favorite, but he was a Punisher. Ray Stevenson had the look. The movie sucked, unfortunately. I think Ray Stevenson came the closest to looking like a convincing Frank Castle. But the Frank Castle we have right now is, oh my God, I forget his name.
The dude from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, Shane from The Walking Dead. Oh my God, John Bernthal. John Bernthal is the new Punisher. I'm sorry. Now when I think of the Punisher, he's as much the Punisher as Matt is Daredevil, as RDJ is
Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
So first, yeah, he is definitely the Punisher. Like when they announced him, they put a picture of Punisher drawn by John Romita Jr. and it was perfect because John Romita Jr. He's a good artist, but he draws very flat faces and like the noses are always kind of big.
The noses are. He always has that hook nose that's flat and square.
Yeah, that's been hit by a pan.
Yes.
And dude, when they did that side by side, I was like, holy like, it's him, man.
The Punisher's a tough character to do, right? To do a legit Punisher, a character that's a good guy but kills. You have to sacrifice something. You either have to make him a bad guy or he doesn't kill, he just KOs his enemies, right? I mean, that's kind of the problem they had with like the cartoons and the more like family stuff. They got the Punisher. You actually felt for this dude. You felt bad for him. You almost felt like, just let him kill the people. Just let him kill the bad guys. They're bad. He knows what he's doing. He's good at it. Come on.
What I like is the guy who's playing Punisher. I already forgot his name again.
John Bernthal.
Yeah, John Bernthal. I'm just going to call him John. Even in Walking Dead. So I don't know if this is how he always looks because I'd never seen him before Walking Dead. So for me, he went from Walking Dead to a movie with The Rock where he was like this rundown former druggy guy. And then to being the Punisher, he has that kind of like worn down look.
He's always at the edge. He's always
he looks like he's already seen some. You know what I mean? His face looks worn. He just looks tired. So him as Punisher, I totally bought it. Like
yes, and he's always got that big mug of coffee with him, and he's always drinking coffee, and it's like that's about right. 5 o'clock shadow, round the clock. He's all bandaged up. He always has bruises on his face. His face is always like 5 different colors from all the beatings
he's taken. Yep.
Oh yeah, the opening arc, the first part of the story, when the Punisher gets himself captured by I think it was the Irish.
By the Irish, yeah.
Yeah, and they're sitting there and they're torturing him, and he finally gives up the location of his van. The guy that has him is radioing him. The guy's at the van, and the van blows up. And dude looks at Frank, and he goes, "Holy crap, dude, you set yourself up for this. Like you walked into this, and you strapped yourself into this chair. You're letting yourself get tortured." And Frank just looks at him and goes, "Yeah, I did." You know what I mean? And they're like, holy we're dealing with a psycho. That's when I was sold. And then his presence in the courtroom was menacing. His presence when they had him tied to the hospital bed was intimidating. He really seemed like they had a raptor or a T-Rex. They were like, don't go past the red tape. Don't talk to him.
Here's a list of things you can't do.
They built it up so perfectly for Frank, man. He really felt like he was just a ticking time bomb.
I think my defining scene for Punisher in that series had to be on the roof with Daredevil when the old man comes up, the veteran guy.
Yeah, the
He
Marine.
puts the gun on the other side of the door. He's like, you make a sound, I blow his head off, man. That whole exchange that they have there, like, he will do it. If this old man comes out, he's as good as dead. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but he's going to do what he has to do.
Yeah.
Then when he goes back to Daredevil and he goes, you're just one bad day away from being...
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yes.
He told Daredevil, he's like, I wasn't going to kill him. And Daredevil told him, you had a gun to his head. And he's like, nah, that was for you. So good. Punisher had so many good scenes. I mean, and we can't talk about the Punisher in this without talking about his encounter with Wilson Fisk in the prison.
Oh, in the prison. So that was one of the things where I was like a day ahead of you. And I saw that scene and I was like, this is the scene that Maiko is going to love. It was a similar scene to season 1 where Daredevil did that long fight in the hallway and it was just the one shot.
Yeah.
This fight felt just like that. The blood splattering.
God.
How bad he looked even though he won. It was so good.
The way the entire scene was done, right? By the way, I totally forgot that the Kingpin was even a character in the Daredevil universe. I was so engulfed into the story that when they walked him into the gym yard and the weights were going up and down, literally I sat up in my seat and I was like, oh my God, Kingpin, that's right. He's in there. He's still in prison. And sure enough, the Kingpin sits up. And then they let Frank go into the cell block, kills the henchman, and he's trying to get answers out of him. So he doesn't just straight up kill the guy, right? So again, a good interrogation. He walks out and double crossed by the Pen dude. So
such a good scene. He's standing up there and he goes, lock the gate.
I mean, right off the bat, they're not going to kill the Punisher, right?
Yeah.
He's not dying yet. They might kill him. You don't know what's going to happen in the show. The Punisher's not locked in there with him. They're locked in there with him. It's one of the best scenes in this season. And then I love the fact that Wilson, Fisk comes back and he's like, look, man,
I made a mistake.
Look, buddy, I didn't realize the level of savage animal I was dealing with here. And I'll admit, I kind of screwed up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I can't have you in here with me. I got to let you go. I am going to give you a chance. Go out, kill a bunch of people outside, and I'm going to start building an army just for you. I'll meet you on the outside.
I like the way that the... you're going to have to say the name again. The dude who plays Wilson Fisk.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
I love his voice as Kingpin. As soon as he started talking that weird, I may have made a mistake. The way he talks, I was like, oh, yeah. Kind of scary, kind of a little bit crazy, but mostly scary.
And then before we get into the one character that we kind of split on, again, the supporting cast is awesome. Stick was great. Stick was, oh my God, what was his name? It was Scott Glenn. He is a 0 F's given kind of a guy. So I went back after I saw season 2 and I rewatched season 1. I was kind of in the Daredevil zone a little bit. And if you notice, a lot of Elektra's dialogue in season 2 is very similar to Scott Glenn's. They hint at Elektra being raised and tutored by Stick without coming out and saying it. And one of the scenes is when Elektra asks if he has any beer, and he says, and she says, this German piss beer. And that Stick had said in the beginning, and if you notice, a lot of her mannerisms and a lot of the way she acts is kind of based on Stick's behaviors and attitude. I thought it was pretty cool.
We were concerned like, there's going to be freaking Daredevil, Foggy, Karen, Elektra, Stick, freaking Kingpin, freaking Punisher. How are they going to do it?
My God.
Yeah, and they seem to do it in a way where they do they kind of have the characters in like a story arc of 3, and they just kind of weave them into the 4th one and then kind of blend it into the next one. And it's done so well that you're not overburdened.
Let's chat about the one person that we disagree on, and that is...
It's not that we disagree. We disagree on one moment. That's essentially what it is one
I loved
moment.
Elektra. I loved Elektra.
I am going to say, when she first appeared, she annoyed the hell out of me. I was all for Matt Murdock and Karen Page. Like, I liked them headed towards a couple. Then she comes along and she's like, oh, hey, Matt, let's go do this. And, pulls him away and pulls him away from working on the Punisher thing, pulls him away from, a date with Karen or whatever. So she kept doing stuff that was interfering with Matt's life. So to me at that time, there was no redeeming redeeming quality to her. She was there to be an annoyance to me.
She was a perfect homewrecker.
A
She was
homewrecker, a
home
job
wrecker.
wrecker, a
Yes.
life wrecker. So it was hard for me to find anything good about her.
Then they played that angle so well because Matt Murdock would put his foot down and be like, no, I'm not falling for it again. You're evil. I don't like you. You're dumb. And she's like, oh, shut up. Let's go. And he was like, okay.
All right. But see,
He
that's
would suit up.
that's the thing. So to reference Game of Thrones, you have Joffrey, who I loved hating. Like every time he was on the screen, I was like, oh, I hate you, but God, I love hating you. Like I loved hating him. Like he sold it to me that he is an asshole. You know what I mean?
Are you comparing Electra to Joffrey?
The character, the character about selling it.
Yeah, she did a good job.
No, he did a good job.
Oh, no, they both did a good job because I had a love-hate relationship, but to me it was like, yeah, she's hot, she's rich, she's a ninja, she's an assassin. Like, oh, dude, she played it really well.
See, in the beginning, I wasn't. Like I said, I wasn't sold on it because I couldn't find, like, even though she was the home wrecker, the job wrecker, and all of that, there was nothing in her that I actually liked. Whereas Joffrey, I really liked how bad and evil he was. To her, she was more of an annoyance. She didn't really have an evil side. You know what I mean? So it's not like I liked her for being this ruthless, horrible person. She was just kind of there to be like, oh, you have a date and you have this big court meeting? Come with me. No. All right. But then near the end of the season, she actually does some cool stuff that actually redeems herself for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm starting to actually like her. And then there's that moment. And it's not that I hated her. I just hated that moment. So in the end, I ended up liking her. I actually appreciated her more towards the end. But there was a single freaking moment in Daredevil that I thought was...
Let's talk about it. We didn't say it at the beginning, but look, there's going to be spoilers. You had a problem with the final scene where they were talking in the little hallway. No, go ahead. Tell us about it. Tell us what you don't like.
So here's the thing. So we have this great action scene, right? They're fighting and there's hand ninjas everywhere, left and right. You can't even look or piss or do anything without a hand ninja being there. And it's a great moment. And they are finally like, oh, you know what? We are really sincerely way outnumbered. We've got to run. So they run, and they go into this hallway. They go up like it's a little stairwell passageway. They shut the door and lock it. And the ninjas, you know, the hand shows up and they're pounding on the door. And you can see that the door is buckling.
It's about to come off.
Yeah. And then suddenly they stop to have a moment. Like he literally says, I want to run away with you. You're the only one who gets me. You know, this is me. I am Daredevil, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, you're just saying that. Oh, let's do it. And they go back and forth and it's to the point where even the ninjas stop pounding on the door. Like for a while when they're initially talking, you hear the ninjas banging on the door and then they just stop. Like the ninjas are down there going, shh, shh, shh. They're having a moment up there. They're having a freaking moment. So it was weird. Like you stop hearing the ninjas pounding and then they have this love sappy thing. And the thing is, at that moment when they said, run away with me, honestly, I thought they were going to go out there. They were going to have a big fight before this moment happened. They're going to win somehow. And basically they were going to part ways is what I thought was about to happen. When they had this moment, Amy, who's watching it with me, even said, oh, she's going to die. And it was true. Like that moment took me out because I realized at that moment, she is gonna die. You know, it's so cliche in every movie when you have that moment near the end of the movie where they're like, let's run away together. Well, you know, she's as good as dead or he's as good as dead. Someone's as good as dead as soon as you say, let's run away together because you're the only one who gets me. That is like so cliche that it took me out. And it was only for like 2 minutes that scene goes on and I was kind of taken out. They open up the door and I was like, okay, ninjas everywhere.
Okay, so that scene that you're talking about that you have a problem with, I was a total chick in that scene. I mean, if in the middle of that scene, if I would have had like my webcam on me, you would have seen me like mascara streaming, tissues, cleaning up the boogers, fluttering. You know, hook, line, and sinker into that scene. I was feeling it. I knew that somebody was going down, but I didn't have that negative reaction that you and Amy had. I was like, oh man, this is it. They know that they might not come out of this, so they're promising each other the world because they know that they're not gonna have, they're not gonna have to pay up on that on that bet because they're not going to make it. I was totally sold. The part where I was bummed out is they showed clips of at least 3 to 4 dozen ninjas.
Oh yeah, there was easily about 36 ninjas on the roof. When you see them running from the left, running from the right, running over from the top,
and they get out there and there's like 8 ninjas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was expecting to see a wall. I was expecting them to all like climb on top of each other to form like a giant ninja.
Yeah, just transform
like the Swarm or something, and there wasn't. So I was kind of bummed out. The scene with the Punisher shows up. I knew that was going to happen. I was like fist pumping. I was like, there he is. And then he just kind of snipes a couple of guys and then gives them the thumbs up. And I was like, oh, I feel like he should have had like a minigun and just mowed down those 3 dozen ninjas that we saw. That would have at least done away with them. You know what I mean? At least it would have been like, oh, see, the Punisher took care of all the ninjas. Yeah. That's cool. And then let Elektra and them have the fight with Naboo or whatever the dude's name was.
It's Star Wars, but I think you're right. I think it is Naboo.
You know what I just realized, dude? I did not know this until I was looking at the cast of Daredevil here on IMDb. You remember the Jewish accountant that's in kind of like he was Al Capone's accountant and he's like in Wilson Fisk's crew? That's the Owl from the comics. I just realized that. His name is Leland Owsley. He's the friggin' Owl. Oh my god, I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
That's awesome if they do more with that. Just like the Patsy Walker thing in Jessica Jones.
Yeah. Okay, so Arvin's ready. Greasy Pig Studio on. Give me a moment, I'll bring him on.
Hey guys.
Hey, he's there now.
Hey, Arvin, what's up, man?
I'm good. Sorry about that. I'm running a half marathon tomorrow, and I had to grab my bib and all of that stuff.
What half marathon you running?
The Hollywood half marathon.
Sweet. I'm running the La Jolla half marathon at the end of the month.
Have you done it before? This is literally my first time.
My first time, dude. I can't wait to do it. So overrunning, dude.
I know. Yes, I'm going to take a several week-long break from running after this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So we have with us today Arvin Batista of Greasy Pig Studios. And let me tell you how I found Arvin Batista of Greasy Pig Studios. I was on Reddit. It was, which is what I do
at work.
And bored at work. And of course, I'm subscribed to like all these subreddits of Marvel Comics, the X-Men, Gambit, you name it, right? Whatever comes up. And I came across your video, one of your most recent video of "I Will Steal Your Heart." I believe that's the name of the song, right? I'm not sure if. Okay, so and someone had posted it and said, "Hey, check out this video, the New Mutants, Lila Cheney." And I watched it, and let me tell you what, dude, I was blown away at this video, dude. You guys killed it. The song, first of all, the song is awesome. The song is cool. I have it on Spotify. It's in a bunch of my playlists. I dig it. The actresses that you used that play Dazzler and Lila Cheney are beautiful. They're amazing. The kids that you have to play the New Mutants look spot on. They look perfect. They look better than what Fox Studios is doing with their movie, right?
Thank you.
Add cameos. Get ready to get your butt kissed in this podcast, man, because when I saw Strong Guy in your video, I knew this was someone that grew up probably reading the same comics that I did growing up. Right?
That was the point, definitely.
So tell me about yourself, man. Tell me about yourself and Greasy Pig Studios.
Sure. I've been obviously a lifelong comic book fan. I was born in the Philippines during the 80s. I got into comics like right as the X-Men reboots came out in the early 90s, which is how a lot of, I think, kids in my generation got into them.
Blue Team, Gold Team?
Yeah, Blue Team, Gold Team, the Jim Lee, Will Sportaccio, Rob Liefeld era. In the Philippines, that was just like, it blew up so big. I mean, the Philippines have always loved comic books, and then when that happened, like everyone in school, like it's not just like comic book nerds or boys, like literally everybody was reading these comic books. So it was kind of impossible to miss. And then we came to the US like immediately after like 1993. And all I wanted to do was to get to go to a for real comic book shop, right? Like that was all I wanted. I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to go to a museum to see dinosaur bones because we've never had that, And then I wanted to go to a real comic book shop, because in the Philippines, comic book shops, that like you're not allowed to browse the comics. They're all like behind glass and stuff.
Oh, that's weird.
So that was like a big deal. Like I just wanted to go to a for real comic book shop where I can just like go and like grab any comic book and just start flipping through them. So anyway, that was me, 20 years ago. Fast forward and went, I just realized that I really like telling stories, and I really like illustration, but I didn't think that I would be able to cut it as a comic book artist or something like that. But I did discover animation and filmmaking, eventually ended up in Los Angeles and Hollywood, went to film school out here, and now, doing visual effects, motion graphics, which is like title design, a little bit of animation, directing. These past few projects have been just kind of me reconnecting with my first love and kind of putting that together with my new love. And it's just been a lot of fun.
Dude, well, it's amazing. It's amazing. You do characters that you wouldn't like. If you gave someone the opportunity to say, okay, look, you have the talent, you have the tools, and go ahead and do some sort of a comic book thing. They would use Wolverine. They would use the big name Cyclops. You used Alison Blair. Mm-hmm. Lila Cheney. You have a long shot. You know what I mean? You have such good characters, man. And if you should have done X-Men First Class for Fox, you would have done a much better job, dude.
I'm sure everybody has their strong opinions about how the X-Men movies have been going on. I think at this point even more so than people would have strong opinions about how like the Marvel comic cinematic universe has been going on. But I really love the work that they've been doing, and at the very least I certainly appreciate how hard it is to kind of realize these characters in live action, that there's so much backstory, and there's so just the translation of like two-dimensional page to for real, like how the costumes are actually going to look and how the powers are going to look. I both envy and don't envy the real guys doing it, because it really is a huge undertaking, and that does that ties into kind of why I decided to do more obscure characters, because I knew that it gives me a little bit of a leeway as far as how close or how really good movie quality these characters are going to end up being. Obviously, we have very low budgets, and all of these actors are just kind of friends of friends or people that are doing it for free. So we're really just trying to use our passion to realize these characters. And I knew that, there's already a really, really good Wolverine out there, and we're not going to beat that, aside from me loving these other characters, and I just really wanted to see them on screen finally. And that up until, there's the current buzz about the New Mutants movie, you wouldn't have thought that a lot of these characters would show up in the actual movies. And honestly, we're still waiting for Dazzler. There's no way, I wouldn't believe that a Lila Chenney would ever show up. Strong guy we can hope for, but, again, very weird character.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured, like, all right, even if I don't nail these guys 100%, I think I'd get the A for effort,
Oh, dude. Thomas's wife is a huge Dazzler fan. She was ecstatic to see like a live action version of Dazzler. On roller skates inside of sound too. That's nice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had been a fan of Dazzler for a while, but I had no idea how big of a for real following she had until I released that video. I thought if anybody was going to see it, they were just going to see it to kind of laugh along ironically with it, maybe, I was doing it for serious. There were so many people it was just really humbling to hear people who really for real loved Dazzler and really appreciated the video. And that was why I decided to do the sequel. Like, if the feedback on the first one wasn't as heartfelt as it was, then, the second video probably wouldn't have happened.
I actually think you did a great job of nailing everyone's personality. Dude, it was an awesome video, man. It was sincerely awesome.
And you used Cannonball, man. You featured Cannonball. How awesome is that,
man? Well, the funny thing is, so we decided to do the Lila Cheney video after we did the Dazzler video. Just because I wanted to try something different. I was still going to have Dazzler in there, obviously, for the fans, but I wanted to do something a little bit more rockin', and, I wanted to do something even more obscure. I was like, all right, let's see how deep the fans go really on this one. Let's go for something that, like, even fewer people know about. So I decided to do the Lila Chenney thing. And then, I realized that, like, all right, well, clearly if I'm going to do a Lila Chenney video, it's going to have the New Mutants in it. And if it's going to have the New Mutants in it, it's going to have all of them. And the original script actually didn't even have them doing all that much. Originally, there wasn't even, like, dialogue. That entire opening scene was just supposed to be them leaving Stevie Hunter's school, her dance class, and then going to the show. And then maybe, they'd kind of like chatter among themselves, but there wasn't going to be like actual character moments, and certainly not moments in which they would show off their powers. And then I cast these people, and they're all fantastic, and they're all super excited to play the roles. And I was like, well, why am I not writing actual dialogue for these characters? Like, this is like my one shot, at least
do
for
something,
now. Yeah, like I can't waste this opportunity. And then as I was writing, it's like, all right, well, I gotta make sure that I really nail these characters in the one or two lines that they have, and to kind of have them be immediately recognizable to the audience. So I, tried to find ways to have them showcase their powers just a tiny, tiny bit. I told the actors ahead of time, like, no matter how much we can try, I'm just not going to be able to squeeze in you guys like actually fighting or like flying around too much. Although eventually I was able to get Cannonball in there. I mean, even Cannonball wasn't originally supposed to go to the alien world with Lila. That was kind of expanded. And that's kind of ridiculous to think about it after the fact. I was like, why? Of course, like why wouldn't he be in there? So I'm glad that I figured that out before we got too far down the line. And figuring out how to do their powers, was just so much fun to do in visual effects. Because, I mean, that is the stuff that I do, but a lot of that stuff was stuff that I'd never done before. And I was just kind of trusting myself that I'm going to figure it out after we shoot, how I'm actually going to do those effects. It turned out really, really well. And hats off to all of the actors who really gave me the inspiration to expand these roles. I mean, like, just one last thing about that. Warlock, played by Cody Dowell. Right. He originally, again, in the script, he wasn't. I was too scared to do him actually turning into Warlock. So I just had him do kind of like a robot voice and kind of, walk in a robot way, and he's hanging out with Doug Ramsey. And I'm like, all right, hopefully this is like good enough for the people and that they would understand. And I'm not going to be able to pull off an actual cyborganic creature or whatever. And then we go shoot the thing, and while he's in the background, while they're trying to get past Strong Guy, he does this like head twitch.
Yeah,
just completely by himself. I didn't direct them to go do that, and I didn't notice that he had done it until I was editing the thing. And I just see it. I'm like, well, I think I'm gonna have to do it.
Yeah, that was perfect. That little bzz, and then you kind of see him for that split second. That was
nice touch. Perfect. Beautiful
and,
touch.
And gave me like a story reason to only get to show it for a little blip, which is probably as much as I can get away with before. It would have probably looked a little too ridiculous, So yeah, it was a lot of back and forth with those actors, and I'm just so happy, of the work that they did.
You just reminded me. One of the cool things. I mean, you're clearly passionate about the New Mutants.
Mm-hmm.
You used Stevie Hunter. I mean, not everyone knows who she is. You just reminded me. Like, they leave her dance class, and that was such a great touch to me. I was like, holy. He pulled out Stevie Hunter. This is awesome. And he started with that, and then you get to Strong Guy, and I was like, all right, well, I'm a huge fan of the later X Factor series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Strong Guy was one of my favorite characters, and then you threw him in there, and I was like, all right, well, I am in it now. He just dropped Stevie Hunter in here and Strong Guy.
Yeah, that was almost like kind of like a test, like if you start with Stevie Hunter and people get it, like they're in for the rest.
They're in
it.
Yep.
and then you just pay it off with Strong Guy at the end. But let me ask you a quick question. When they get to the nightclub and we only see little glimpses of Strong Guy, did you immediately know that was him?
I knew it was him from his glasses in the beginning. Yeah. When he's standing there, I picked up right there. I didn't have to see this big, huge, bulking, massive body.
Right.
Just the face with the glasses and the way he talked. I was like, that's Strong Guy right there.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even need the bar.
Yeah. The voice and the glasses for me. The little John Lennon glasses.
Yeah.
It's like, that's Guido.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was the entire point, is you give that. and have the people kind of like salivate for that and then not have any idea that we're actually going to go show them at the end.
Yeah.
And again, the part of that is the practicality reason of it was that, it's that character has been heavily CGI, manipulated. I put up like a VFX breakdown of the video, and you can see what the guy actually looked like when we shot him. He's been super, photoshopped up and all of that stuff. And we just wouldn't have been able to do a lot of him actually moving around and talking with that type of effect. The video is very heavily inspired by Lila Cheney's first appearance in New Mutants Annual #1. I'm looking at my framed copy right now, which is signed by both Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz.
Oh, nice.
So I just got to get Bob McLeod in there, and then that's pretty much good to go. I got to meet Bill Sienkiewicz at WonderCon, and then Chris Claremont earlier this year at Long Beach Comic Expo, and then they both said very nice things about the video. But yeah, I mean, this video was much more directly an adaptation of a specific storyline versus the Dazzler video, which is much more of a general outline of her character. The video has an intro with them at Stevie Hunter's studio. It actually has an intro with them at the Danger Room, but I wasn't going to be able to pull that off. But, again, I was like, I'm going as deep of a cut as I could here. I got to go with Stevie Hunter. And Guido was not in that issue, but, he was Lila Cheney's bodyguard. That was.
Yes, he was.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was perfect, dude. Everything was in place. I mean, even the simple storyline of the New Mutants sneaking off to go watch Lila Cheney at a nightclub, and sneaking into the bar. They're all underage, but it was perfect. That was it, dude. That's all the storyline you needed. I was sold.
It's a music video, and it's kind of an 80s style music video. So we're allowing ourselves to be kind of silly about it, but really, like, that is. Obviously the New Mutants storylines goes into some really deep and heavy themes, especially during like the Bill Sienkiewicz era, but they're teenagers, you want to be able to have a little bit of fun with them being teenagers and doing teenagery things. And that just let us kind of, again, be kind of silly, but, excuse ourselves for that and just have a lot of fun.
I would probably rank your video somewhere between Deadpool and X2. That's it. The rest of them, whatever. They can just go wherever you just sort them wherever. This is it though. These are the closest actualization of these characters I've seen on screen, man. Really good job.
Thank you.
I gotta ask you something. I saw on I was kind of going through some of your old posts, and you have an autographed copy of NFL Super Pro. It's signed by Fabian Nicieza. Now, right off the bat, you can probably end one of our debates here between me. How does Fabian pronounce his last name?
I have now, a long time ago, I used to pronounce it Nicieza. I feel like it's Nicieza, but it's not like I talked to him directly and he said,
This is my last name.
It's not
my last name.
I did hear your guys' debate about it. I don't think I'm the one settling it. So look for another video where somebody else says his name. Have Rob Liefeld say it.
As if having all these characters in your video wasn't like deep cuts enough. When I saw you holding up that NFL Super Pro #1 signed by
Well, okay, so here's what happened. So that was at Long Beach Comic Expo where my primary goal was to meet Chris Claremont, and I did, and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to be able to get to do that. And he said that he'd seen the video, and Louise Simonson was the one who had sent it to him, and I'm like, all right, done. I'm happy for the rest of the day. And I actually can't remember even if I knew that Fabian was going to be there or not. And then he was. And I was like, oh no, I didn't bring anything for him to sign. So I was like, all right, well, my favorite thing to do at comic convention is just to go through the 50-cent bins. And honestly, that's where 95% of my Dazzler collection came from.
Don't tell Thomas that.
There are two things that I very actively collect. Well, the Dazzler collection is basically complete right now. The other one is New Universe from the 80s.
Oh, that's so funny because I'm actually rereading those right now.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm actually going to be doing a podcast about it. I'm going to be doing a New Universe podcast real soon where my wife and I are going to go read that together.
That's so funny.
And then I've never seen Heroes, so she's going to show me Heroes, and then we're going to compare the two. That's what we're going to try to do. So anyway, not to digress too much, because obviously the cuts just keep getting deeper here.
Dude, this is ridiculous, man. Comment is literally like this last week has been reading, reviewing, like just talking to me about New Universe like it's relevant.
I love it. I've had those I've had comics of those since I was a little kid, and only recently have I been actively looking for them, but only in the 50-cent bins. Like, I know that I can buy them all on eBay, but like that's not the point. The point is like you only look through them in the bins. So I was looking, so we were looking through the comics, and I was like, all right, well, I can probably find an X-Force or something in here for Fabian to sign. And then we realized that Fabian was charging like $10 per signature on anything X-Men related, which that's fine. I totally understand. He was like the star at the time because Deadpool was coming out that weekend or whatever, or had just come out that weekend. But I was like, all right, I think he would really appreciate like me doing something extra here, and also that I don't have to pay the money. And actually, maybe like right when we released the video, I actually tweeted him the Lila Cheney video, and he said like he loved it. He actually tweeted us back, and he said like, wow, that was great. That was like the comics that he was reading, when he was coming up, and so we already knew that he was aware of us already. So I was like, I told my wife like, all right, there's only one other thing that I know for a fact that Fabian Nicieza wrote that is not X-Men related, and that is NFL Super Pro. So we are going to dig through this bin, and if we see any NFL Super Pro, we're going to go buy it. Not only did we find an NFL Super Pro, we found number 1, and it was the only one. I've never
what a lucky guy you are.
An NFL Super Pro. I have one in my collection that I got as a kid that somebody got me. And it was ridiculous. It was like, number 8 or whatever. It's completely torn up, and I didn't bring it with me. But I found number 1. So I got in the line, and I showed it to him, and I was like, I don't know how many people send this to you, or like have this for you to sign. And he's like, sadly, more than you would think.
That is funny.
And we had a really good laugh about it, and we talked about the video, and the first thing that he said was like, Stevie Hunter? Well, who the hell put Stevie Hunter in a video?
See, I told you.
Exactly. Oh, dude, that's awesome. I had NFL Super Pro number 1. I had like the first handful of NFL Super Pros, and I just remember at one point, coming to a conclusion where it's like, dude, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I buying these comics? Like Spawn and the X-Men, and I have all these good comics, and I'm like also getting. And I don't have them anymore. I don't know what happened to them, but I would kill for an NFL Super Pro like complete run.
Oh my god! I was reading it with my wife while we were in line, for Fabian, and she was just like, "I can't believe you just made me look." Because she and I were looking through the bin. Like she starts in one end of the bin, I start at the other end of the bin. It's like, I can't believe this is what we're standing in line for. But it was totally worth it. And yeah, clearly, obviously, we all have this shared passion for the really, really weird and obscure and maybe not even particularly well loved corners of a comic book fandom, and that's really what I wanted to tap into with first the Dazzler video and then the Lila Cheney video, because obviously comics are just so hot right now, and everybody knows about them. There are people out there who were living this stuff out of necessity for survival, in the 80s and stuff, and had nobody to talk to about them. All you had was to literally collect every comic that you could get your hands on and read them, back to front multiple times over, even if you had no idea or any real, allegiance to any of the comics that you got, and then reading through the power stats of the, trading cards and memorizing. What a 7 rating and speed meant, and
then being upset when they didn't match up in like the next series of cards. Like,
yeah.
Well, he's more powerful than this.
And then they kept changing what the actual categories were.
Yeah. And, Totally, dude. I mean, if you want to talk about obscure, like unliked characters, that's like Thomas's forte. I think that's like literally his profile description is those are the characters that he likes.
Yeah, true. I mean, I've always been a fan of the underdogs. Even in, you know, again, at one point, liking comics was being an underdog. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Now. So now you connect with other people who feel that way also.
Oh man, yeah. I think Thomas is the only guy that like starts petitions to bring back characters that.
I had no idea. I didn't even. So I'm actually like I feel bad because I'm actually not. I'm not nearly as well versed in like current comic book general storylines. I'm always at least kept up on that, and I have friends who work in the industry, so we're always aware of it. But I'm not. My budget and my schedule just doesn't allow for me to to read everything that comes out right now.
You have your personal golden era, your golden age of comics.
Yeah, I have plenty of comics for me to read and reread, but that's not. I'm not making any comment at all about the current quality of comics. It's just I just haven't had the time and for a while the money to go and do that. So I've just been focusing more on the old stuff, and I didn't even know that like Stevie Hunter actually hasn't been in the comics since like the 90s. And
oh yeah. Literally.
I don't think anyone's really asking where Stevie Hunter was.
Yeah.
But in New Mutants, she was very important.
I know.
Asking.
And that was the main thing that I asked Chris Claremont when I met him. And I was like, what is the deal with I really always appreciated all of these random characters that he would put in. But usually when you write those things, like they're usually even more important to the plot,
There's a purpose.
Yeah. But they were important, but mainly as just like texture and world building.
Yeah, they were the real people.
Yeah, and I love that. And I was just fascinated that he would even think, like while he was juggling all of the other storylines that he's writing, that, to just throw these characters in here. And then I was just in awe of that. And I asked him, like, oh, so were there ever any actual plans for Stevie Hunter? And he said yes, but then he wouldn't tell me what the actual plans were. And then obviously once he left, everybody literally, like, who would even remember to go and bring that character back up?
Yeah.
They bring back everybody, Stiltman and all the other weird superhero characters. I was sure that at some point Stevie Hunter would at least show up in the background of a wedding or a funeral or anything, but apparently she hasn't been back since the 90s. And again, part of my being the vanguard for these more obscure characters.
I totally feel like I am your brother.
One day they'll have.
We would have gotten beaten up together when we were kids.
Yeah.
And neither of us would have been able to protect the other one. Yeah.
Someday they'll bring back Stevie Hunter and Nomad and Adam X, and it'll be a underwhelming.
X-Men Apocalypse is coming out and New Mutants is coming out, and I am already in awe of that they would even, be set in the 80s and that they would even consider having these characters on there already. I'm both happy and sad that that they're finally getting around to them, but that it took this long for the X-Men movies to be as comic booky as we all kind of wanted them to be. But again, like I'm still a huge fan of what they've done. I have very strong nitpicks about all of that stuff, but that's just me being a fan. The fact that they exist at all and that we live in this time in which all of that stuff is a for real thing that exists, I can't believe it. Deadpool, I just could not. I literally said many times ever since X-Men Origins came out that there's no way this Deadpool movie's going to get made. They screwed saying like there's going to be a new one and that it's going to be like we're going to correct all of the mistakes from the previous one, and the script is filthy, and that it's completely self-referential, and it's exactly what you want a Deadpool movie to be like. And Ryan Reynolds just kept bringing it up in every interview, and all I kept saying was like, no, there's no way, that's not going to get made. Like
they're not going to allow it. They're not. I
understand him. I understand him wanting to bring it up because his career was a little shaky after Green Lantern or whatever. But this movie is just way too weird. No one's going to want to watch this movie, And then they did, and now I've just done nothing but eat crow about that because I literally, regardless of how I feel about that movie or how anybody could feel about that movie, just the fact that it exists is just like they win immediately by the virtue of the fact that it exists as a movie.
Not only that is they nailed an X-Men character. They nailed Colossus, dude. They got him spot on. Oh my God. I was not expecting that, dude.
Yeah, the heart on his sleeve Russian painter. Like, oh, that's just going to be, who's going to like that? Just straight
Did
up
you eat your
American.
breakfast, Negasonic? It's the most important meal of day. And he gives her a protein bar. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's it. That's his trainee. That's how he's taking care of her.
It's funny how I am positive that they are now furiously rewriting whatever scripts are out there now for the other X-Men movies to make sure that those two characters are in there.
Yeah.
That's not even to mention like however they're going to figure out how to shoehorn Deadpool into everything from now on. Because it's just Deadpool and the X-Men at this point.
Okay, Arvin, well, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, man. I got a feeling that this isn't going to be the last one that we do with you. Great conversation. Great video, dude. You're doing some good work. Keep it up. I hope you continue making more of these videos, man, because you definitely have an eye for the costumes, the actors, the actresses, an ear for the music. You got your stuff together, man. I hope you do more. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's going to be hard to top this one because I feel like, again, I got to keep going deeper, and I just don't know how much more this is going to go. I have a tiny like inkling that maybe I want to do one with like fallen angels in the 80s.
Yes, dude. And you can still use the freaking half the New Mutants team.
I know. I really want to do, I want to do Boom Boom, and
dude,
I don't want to set up too many expectations. I don't know if that's actually going to play out. But thank you so much. I really appreciate all of the fans' support and all of your guys' support, and just being able to know, being able to commiserate with everybody about the more obscure corners of comic book fandom. That's really what I like, and that's what I'm making this for.
Really quick before you go, where can people find your video, find out more about you, and find stuff about you and Greasy Pig Studios?
Sure. On YouTube, the channel is Greasy Pig Studios, but if you just search for Lila Chenney and or Dazzler, those things are pretty high up on the search results. So feel free to subscribe to those whenever we release any new videos or behind the scenes videos. The two videos also live in superheropop.com, which is where I am parking all of the superhero fan related stuff that we do. But all of the Greasy Pig Studios work is just at greasypigstudios.com. I'm on at same Facebook at Greasy Pig Studios, and for Twitter it's just at Arvin Bautista.
Thanks, Arvin.
Thank you so much, guys. I can't wait to hear more. And if you ever do a new universe episode, you got somebody.
I'm bringing you on, man.
I'm bringing you on. You're gonna have to fight to keep me off, to knock me off the air. I got a lot of stuff to say about that one. And no one's gonna listen to it.
Just give me you 3.
3? That's all you guys.
You have to hear it because you're gonna be here.
Yeah, we got to subject somebody to it, I guess.
Exactly.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, thanks, Arvin.
Bye.
All right, Dorphise, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Excellent. So I got to read a copy of Spirit's Destiny's comic. I'll tell you what, there aren't many characters that are both Haitian or Haitian American and set in South Florida. So this is a very different setting. Tell us about Spirit's Destiny and the characters in the story that you're writing.
Basically, she lives in a household, in a Caribbean household. Like her grandmother was born in Haiti, and she brings that culture, that lifestyle into her life. And her mom is much more Americanized, so she does not practice the same thing that her grandma practiced. The grandma practiced voodoo, and Destiny. Her real name is Destiny. She doesn't believe in all that witch. She thinks her grandma's kind of weird from her practices and all that, and she's kind of rebellious. She's very sarcastic.
Yeah, she seems like I hate to use the word typical, but she seems like she's your typical high school age girl who's just kind of trying to dealing with adults and parents and bullies at school and boys and.
Yeah, we all been there. We try to be good, but And my son really inspired me to write this. He became infatuated with comic books. Like I did as a hobby, and then when I told people my plot, they were like, "Yo, you should just go with it."
So you didn't grow up reading comics yourself?
Yeah, I did. I collected comics when I was younger, and when I got older, went to college. My mom I don't know what she did with them. She won't tell me.
I gotta break the news. Your mom threw your comics away.
Yeah.
Really, I know she won't tell you that. So I hate to to be the person to break the news to you, but they're in the landfill. They're gone.
Yeah.
They're trees again, though. At least, hopefully.
It was so disheartening.
And I think the comic industry definitely depends on independent creators, independent ideas.
As a fan, you get tired of seeing the same old thing. And right now, the indie industry, the indie creators are moving up. Before I started, I was researching, how to write a comic strip and how to do it the correct way. And then a lot of creators was helping me out.
So you did the research and stuff like that. How did you contact other artists? Like, what was your resource for reaching out to other artists to make your story come alive?
That was the hardest part.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I had to actually go through a lot of forums. I went to DeviantArt. I went through Facebook, a lot of Facebook pages. Like, there's like hundreds of comic book Facebook pages. I've tested out so many, but it just didn't, spark. And then I found Edwin, and I reached out to him, and I was telling a story, and he fell in love with it. He made me a better writer. As you can see from the fight scene, that was supposed to be a double splash page. He said, no, let's do it this way. And then, I switched up the script, and it worked. You got to have that type of relationship with your penciler.
I do some writing on the side, and I've had a couple people do, art for the characters I've created. And I find when you find a good artist, they actually help you inspire that character, because they may create vision of your character that maybe you didn't think of, that suddenly makes that character feel more alive to you, because now you have a physical representation of what your character looks like, and you feel more inspired about that character.
That's cool.
Yes, that's so true. The guy that created my character is named Terry Allett. He worked for Marvel once upon a time, but he just he told me he did just the design for their website. He created her. I just told her how I wanted, and then the images, and that's what he created.
I noticed you have a number of different artists that worked on your first issue. So you had a cover artist, and then you had a handful of artists that did different pages for you. Did you have it planned out that way?
No, I did not. Fortunately, Edwin has some issue with his father. Yeah, he was in the hospital, and he told me straight that he needed help. I'm like, okay. My colorist, he's awesome. He knows how to draw. So basically, he mimicked same way Edwin draws onto the comic.
You were able to pull people from artists from DC and from Marvel to help you out with your book?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's cool. Just so we give credit where credit's due. The artist that worked on your first issue, Zach Dolan did your cover. Edwin Galman, Saint Yak, Richard Parada, and Alexander Malishev. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, you said it correctly, because I couldn't say it before. He corrected me so many times.
What you've done also with the characters, I've noticed, is you've kind of spread out their bios and their origins throughout, like, your blogs, your websites, your Kickstarters, your Facebook. So you don't have the full picture in any one spot. For example, I didn't know that Brian, Destiny's father, was an ex-Navy SEAL after reading the first book until I read your Kickstarter profile. Was that by design as well?
Yeah, Edwin created Brian, and Terry just he did little alterations and colored them. And I just told Edwin, because I have a lot of friends from the military, and I told Edwin what I wanted, and that's what he came up with.
I'll tell you what, Brian's gear looks the most MCU.
I thought you was gonna say Metal Gear.
But Metal Gear, absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
I told him, like, yo, I said, you play a lot of Metal Gear? He said, yeah. I'm like, yeah. You went for that look, bro.
You play a lot of Metal Gear. A lot of straps, a lot of belts, a lot of pouches. Absolutely.
He's like my Joker. Brian took me the longest to create, because I had to put my state of mind, like, how do you become a villain? Brian's gonna be like the main villain that Spirit have to,
He's a big bad.
Yeah.
That's the main protagonist. So it's not someone that she's just immediately going to try to kill or take out. Like, there's still a soft spot, and we don't really actually see what her powers are. Is it explained, or is that something you're gonna save?
No, it's gonna be explained the next issue. Like, when you read it, you're gonna see why. You're gonna see why the grandma's very important in the story. Issue 2 has a lot of things going on right now. It was kind of fun. I'm working with a new artist named Jake Subin.
So is Jake on it for the rest of the haul? Like, is this set to be a limited series, or are you looking just to keep going with it?
Keep going.
Cool. Very cool. And he's in it for the long haul?
Yeah, he's in it for the long run. He told me he said he's not trying to go nowhere.
Good. All right, cool. It can get jarring, like if a book keeps switching artists.
Yeah.
Your first issue was a Kickstarter campaign that was successful, correct?
Yes.
Are you kickstarting the second issue as well?
The goal for this year, I'm planning to come out with 4 comics.
Are we talking 4 different comics or 4 issues of Spirit's Destiny?
4 issues of Spirit's Destiny. I'm a big girl, so I could handle some critique,
That's a cool thing to say because, like I said, I do some writing on the side, and that is a hard thing to sometimes take because when you put your work out there for the public to consume, with such a large audience, there are going to be people who just don't like it for whatever reason. Maybe some legitimate, some will just say, oh, it sucked. You know what I mean? So opening yourself up like that is a tough thing to do. So it's kind of cool that you said, I'm ready for any kind of critique, whether it be good or bad.
Of course. I've witnessed people not able to take criticism. I'm looking at them like, yo, if you're not going to make it like that.
If you're going to be an artist and have your stuff critiqued, you have to be able to take criticism. I mean, if you're at a talent level where you're at that level where you don't have to listen to people's criticism, like, good for you. But when you're starting out, you have to be able to take criticism, both positive and negative, and try to turn that into something positive. Yeah, growth, exactly.
And when people started finding out that I was writing a comic, my friends was like, so you're not going to put me in a comic? I'm like...
That was going to be my next question. Like, hey, when are we going to get to be in your comic?
Hey, I responded. But yeah, they're feeling it because I came in from a Haitian community school, and when they seen it, it was like, yeah, finally we got something like we can actually say is authentic.
It's something that's actually properly being represented by someone who actually is connected to that type of community.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Marvel tried. They tried with the Haitian characters, and it was in 1976, and I was not born yet. So I started reading. I'm like, no, that's not all we do. That's not all Haitians do. It's not only voodoo, but it's one of the. There is gonna be always that one person that does practice witchcraft.
Jericho Drum was Dr. Voodoo, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Voodoo. Yes.
Dr. Voodoo, yeah, or Brother Voodoo. All right, Dorphise. Well, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us. Do appreciate it. Let us know when the next Kickstarter campaign starts up, and we'll be more than glad to help you out. Where can folks find you, and where can folks find Spirit's Destiny's comic?
It's on Amazon, Kindle, and they can also find it on my website, www.spiritsdestinycomics.com.
Okay, thank you, Dorphise Jean of Spirit's Destiny's comic, and we hope to be interviewing you again soon for the release of Spirit's Destiny #2.
Thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Relief Podcast.
We'll hope you join us next time as we continue to discuss all things comic book related.
And until then, make mine Marvel
and DC
and independent. Don't forget to check us out at comicreliefpodcast.com, or you can visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Comic Relief Podcast, or go to our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Comic Relief Podcast. And finally, there is our Twitter page, which is twitter.com/Comic Relief PODC. I'd like to give a special shout out to Travis Richards, who did the music for the Comic Relief Podcast. Visit his website at www.travisarichards.com.